My friends who enjoy spiritual practices often discover that a once terrific practice has run dry. The good news is that there are many other worthy practices to try from sources we might have yet to explore. In this video, we'll look at one from ancient Ireland that ties back to how people have learned to pray for 3 millennia. A friend of mine has been caring for her dying mother. As her mother has gotten less lucid, my friend has found herself praying a classic prayer from St. Patrick over her. Christ with me, Christ before me, Christ behind me, Christ within me, Christ at my right, Christ at my left, Christ in the home, Christ in the street, Christ in the store, Christ in the heart of everyone who thinks of me, Christ in the mouth of everyone who speaks to me. In a moment, I'll tell you about an encouraging moment that came out of this, but first let me fill you in a bit about St. Patrick and how this prayer came to be. Patrick grew up in England when it was under Roman rule in the 4th century. His grandfather was a pastor, and he forced young Patrick to memorize the entire book of Psalms. Patrick rebels against this heavy-handed treatment, but then one night, while he's away from his family, he's captured by slave raiders from Ireland. So suddenly he's a slave on Ireland's west coast, working as a shepherd, living most of his life freezing cold outdoors on hillsides. In his misery, he remembers these prayers which his grandfather made him learn by heart, which is useful now because he doesn't have books. He prays 100 psalms a day, 50 in the morning and 50 at night. And at some point, God starts speaking to him, telling him, all right, it's now time for you to get free, and here's how you're going to do it. You're just going to walk away and walk 200 miles to the East Coast, and there will be a boat there waiting for you, and the boat will take you back. This was risky for a lot of reasons. One was that while he now spoke the language of Ireland, he nonetheless spoke it with an accent, which was a giveaway that he was a slave, that he'd been captured from somewhere else. So if he talks to anybody on this 200-mile walk, the odds are he's going to be returned to his master and killed. But nonetheless, he does it. He goes to the coast, sees some people with a boat, and convinces them to take him to England. At some point after his joyful reunion with his family, he has a strange dream in which he meets an Irishman who says, "Holy youth, walk still among us. Come back to Ireland." Now at that point, Rome had sent people to Christianize Druidic Ireland, but they were all expelled or killed. And again, Patrick's accent would immediately identify him as a runaway slave. But nonetheless, after his return, he develops a large following. Many think he performed miracles. And by the time of his death, he'd seen Ireland switch wholesale to faith in Jesus. Despite the success of his mission, he says in his memoir that every single day he felt as though he were going to be murdered. He would still pray his 50 psalms in the morning and 50 psalms at night. His followers took him one step further. Their practice was to pray the entire Psalter, 150 psalms every day. 50 in the morning, 50 at noon, 50 at night. Later, his followers compiled this wisdom into a prayer they called the Breastplate of St. Patrick, which you can find online. The prayer, mirroring all those psalms they prayed, is full of a kind of boldness and fire and authority that strikes many modern prayers as jarring but powerful. So for instance, it begins, "I bind to myself today the fullness of the Trinity. I believe the Father, Son, and Spirit, the creator of the universe." So we're praying into ourselves all of the qualities of the Father, Son, and Spirit, which seems pretty bold. The prayer goes on to pray into ourselves the qualities of the creation and the biblical characters. It claims authorities over evil powers that are out to get us. Remember that Patrick expected to be murdered by his enemies every day. And it moves towards this crescendo of seeing Christ wherever we look that my friend prayed over her dying mother. I pray Patrick's whole prayer regularly, and I love it. With Patrick and his followers, I've also prayed the Psalms regularly, as if they were my own prayers. And what I now find particularly valuable is when Patrick's approach to prayer is paired with a quieter contemplative practice. For me, the contemplative prayer helps address chronic anxieties, while Patrick's feisty approach helps address acute anxieties, hard things which might be swamping me right now. As my friend prayed the breastplate, she found it was both a contemplative tool and a spiritual weapon, depending on which part she prayed. And like the Psalms, it gave her words to pray at a time when finding her own words for prayer were difficult. Her most powerful experience came when, gathered around her unconscious mother in her last days, her family prayed some prayers like this, and her mother suddenly woke up, thanked them, and then went back to sleep. So try praying like St. Patrick, and see if his prayer becomes as useful to you as it has been to me. And join us next time for a look at another powerful spiritual practice.